Riya Tosar, all the way from the Bay Area, joining us to share her experiences and insights. A brief introduction about Riya. Um, with over 20 years of global industry experience across industries and geographies, Ria currently leads product design at SAP Labs in the Bay Area. She is the director of product design at SAP. She will be speaking about ethical AI. It's about people. I would like to welcome Ria on behalf of all of us here. Welcome, Ria.
Hey, thanks, Ashmi, and thanks everyone for inviting me. Let me share my screen. Mm, Let me know once you see it.
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Do
We
you
can
see
see
the
you.
Yeah.
or you see the notes version?
No, we can view the presentation.
Okay, fine. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk to you all. First of all, hope you all are doing well and wish you a very happy Diwali to you all. Uh,
Yes, same to you.
And yes, today I'm going to talk about something which is very close to my heart. I have been really enjoying exploring this area is AI, and something I learned along the way, last 4 years, lot of learnings. And finally, one thing which I realized is whatever we design, it is about people, and no matter whether it is AI or it is a normal design, right? So I want to bring in that perspective today when I talk about what is ethical AI and how actually we have to think as a designer from people's perspective or think from the perspective of human values when we are designing it. So let me go to next. Before I jump into that, I briefly talk about actually the key of designing for it is something I myself realized that collaboration is the key. And actually, Margaret Boden, the way she has mentioned this, I felt this is so true that we need to approach AI in a multidisciplinary way because the brain itself is bundle of independent elements. So when we are designing, as a designer we have to really collaborate with different groups within organization, out of organization. So there is a very heavy lifting on the collaboration part, and more than designing, I think it's more of a thinking that I guess every designer can bring into the table for the advancement of AI. So, talking about these three aspects, the three key elements of this collaboration is the partnership with the product management, engineering, and bringing the user-centered approach to AI innovation is the key. How we can every time we say, every time we find any problem that user is facing, any pain points, bringing in that perspective, okay, how it's going to help user providing this solution or coming up with these features. So aligning them all the time with user point of view is something we as a designer can bring in, because as a UX designer we are trained to do that. Second is ideation. Again, I would say designing for AI is not something very different process, but yes, one thing I realize is different is, as I said, like it's more about thinking, how you can bring that thinking when you're collaborating with the cross-functional teams. So in ideation also, it is more about design thinking, focusing more on the intent of users as well as business, and how AI can actually help solve that problem uniquely, which maybe human can't solve it. So always bringing that perspective, okay, is this a unique solution which only AI can solve it, which actually helps you to align and keep in the direction of where your organization really want to go with that innovation. Then third is visualization. I feel as a designer we have this superpower of visualizing future, right, or visualizing something invisible. which I guess not everyone can do that. For example, product management or engineering. Of course, they know the logic, they know how the solution can be provided in terms of development of it. But I guess visualization is something, and that too from user point of view, is designer can bridge that gap. And I guess that's our superpower, and that really helps, particularly when we collaborate with these teams. So these are the three key aspects I would say always bring in whenever you're working with your team on AI innovation. The reason I'm talking about this because I personally felt this is extremely critical aspect of working on AI innovation. Now talking about people, so we all are enjoying every day. My day start with asking Google what's the latest news, and then I don't even realize during the day how many things I interact with, which is like I sometimes feel I so much trust technology now. When I'm driving car, when I'm actually cleaning my house with my iRobot, so many things. When I'm gardening, when my I turn on my sprinklers in the garden. So there are so many things which naturally comes to me, and for many others, right, in our day-to-day life. So at somewhere I feel we have already accepted this technology in some way, but yes, of course there is no 100% trust. It's still yet to come when it comes to applications, right, like banking or some of the critical aspects, right, where you really need still people involved in those transactions. So talking about ethical AI, again, there are very basic guiding principles which I'm going to talk about today. And since I say it is about people, it should be the AI ethics should be married with human ethics. So let's see what makes us trust humans, right? What are those values that really help us trust humans? So, empathy. So, someone who really empathetic and can relate to you, understand you well. Safety with someone who you feel physically and emotionally safe. Someone who is honest and won't be judgmental about you. Person who respects you, your space, and know the boundaries. Who maintain the transparency in communication and actions. Someone who is always there to support you and guide when you need it the most. You feel confident about person who's competent and would listen to their suggestions without any doubts, because you always need that confirmation, right? Okay, this is the right person and I know he's capable of giving me the right guidance. And someone who's pure at heart, who's kind, you know, their intention is correct and it's always going to be good. So these are the basic. Of course there are many other values, but some of these things I feel are the common values which every person look for in another person when they want to trust someone. So now how can we marry these with AI? So how can we actually um, how can we help you trust AI, right? What are these values which we see in human can actually translate into AI? So the values, say I say empathy, so it is about understanding someone, right? So it is about understanding user needs, what exactly they really need, and how can we help, how AI can help them solve it. Safety is about again without actually increasing the stress, because people are already stressed out about lot of things in their daily lives, right? So how can we really help use technology to help them reduce that stress, not really increase their stress? So how can we give them that secure environment where they can do all the transactions and all those kind of things? uh, Honesty is again, how do you translate that? It is about unbiased behavior. So something which without any providing a solution without any biased or any providing any data which is truthful. So that's basically unbiased behavior. Respecting my space, respecting my privacy is equally important, and very critical aspect of AI is user data privacy. So how can we protect that? Transparency is about explain and having a clear communication. So how can we explain why you need to use certain recommendations given by AI or solution given by AI? So having that clear communication. And then while doing all this, keeping user in control, it's not being really overpowering or um, not overtaking what user really wants to do. So being more their friend, assistant, being available when they really need it, keeping them in control so they can override the decision at any point of time. Reliability is about how can you provide them the data which is reliable, which they can trust, in terms of they feel guaranteed that okay, this is the data is right, this is truth. So how can we focus getting the data which is reliable? And then last is how can AI help flourish human, right? And how can we use it for common goods? So if you want to translate really these human values into AI, these are the things I guess are primary, which when we are building ethical AI, we should always focus on. Now, talking about these guiding principles, which basically captures all these human values we talked about just now. So, starting with how can we make it human centered? So, we talked about how can be AI kind, how can it understand human needs. So, it's basically about being kind, staying grounded in human needs, and keeping human in control, and advance the flourishing of people in society. So it covers all the aspects, good aspects of AI, like how it can be kind and still do good for the society. It is about safety. So not harming your people, not harming your users, protecting their data privacy, being reliable, and avoiding misuse of any of their data. So safety is one of the very important aspect. We talked about unbiased behavior. So it's about promoting the fair treatment and unbiased outcomes. How can we make AI anticipatory? Because again, another objective of AI or goal of AI is automating lot of things, right? Automating processes, automating certain actions. So how can we anticipate how human is going to behave based on some of the historical data and actions? It should be explainable. It should explain me as a user why, when, how, and make actions easy to understand by user. They should know why they are taking certain actions. And at the last, it's a no-brainer, but it should be meaningful. User should get the information only which is required, and AI should eliminate unnecessary other options which are needless. So these are the six guiding principles which I personally, when I'm designing for AI, I follow, and this is something um, during the brainstorming sessions, design thinking sessions, me and my team, we have came up with which the basis for us when we are designing AI solutions. Now to start with, I'm going to share a few examples, which some of the examples are more of B2C, which you all have seen in your day-to-day life. But I'm just going to highlight some of the feature and how those features are mapping these values. So I'm going to talk about that. But to start with, again, this is not example uh, from any software, but it is a very recent example, which I'm very sure you have seen it. It is just a 1.5 minute video, which I would like you to see, because I feel this is the perfect example of how AI is done for good, and it also demonstrates the scale of it, like what impact AI can have. So you can also understand the severity of it.
India is home to more than 6 crore small businesses, and they've been fighting for survival after the coronavirus outbreak and the lockdowns. Presenting not just a Cadbury ad. We advertised not just for ourselves, but for thousands of small businesses across India. The idea was innovative, but the technology and execution was challenging. Most of the stores in India don't have a digital presence. So we had to manually feed our system to create a database of local retailers, mapping them to their location, which we identified through PIN codes. As the ad was served to an individual, an algorithm grow located the PIN code and then mapped the various local stores in that PIN code and served the one closest to the individual in real time. The AI-enabled system created thousands of permutations for the localized version of the same ad. So many that it is even impossible to track. This resulted in the first ever hyper-personalized ad ever. One that ensured every single person that saw the ad supported a local store. Because when all of us support our local stores, all of us can have a happy Diwali, not just a Cadbury ad.
So I'm sure you all have seen this ad recently. It went really viral, and the reason I thought of sharing this with you all is because I felt this captures the soul of AI so well. This is how AI should be. It should be for good. And with the current situation where we are facing so many challenges, and particularly the smaller business, right? How well it is used to help them in this condition. So to start with, AI for good, there are many other examples which I can talk about. AI is used in cancer screening. We have basically seen it used in a lot of healthcare applications, and many other good reason basically where there are softwares developed which are used and developed basis on AI. One aspect here, they talked about the hyper personalization and the way they have manually feed or mapped some of these zip codes, right? So similarly, when we as a designer designing for AI, it is something, there is always one side where you are helping machines to train, right? Or there you are helping also designing machines at some point, like how can they capture the right data, how can we get more data, right? So we are training machine at some point. So the admin part of it, we also need to design those flows, right? So that's one aspect we should always remember. How can we help design those flows which are like, which would eventually help machine to get the good data, right? And create that process much seamless. Now talking about, since I'm talking about augmenting machines and then machine augments human, it's about, I would like to use an analogy where our parents, when we were kids, they used to teach us something, right? They used to teach us important values, they used to teach us good things. Maybe they were not techno savvy at that time, but now as we grow, we become adult, we teach them some of these good things, right? Maybe the time has passed and the technology has advanced. So each one of us help our parents get up to the speed in terms of technology, how to use iPhones or any other smartphones, or how to use this digital technology. So it's like give and take. Our parents gave us certain values. We actually cherish those values, and now it's time maybe when we are so close to our parents, we are giving back to them by teaching them something which right now maybe they are not able to do. So it's the same analogy with designing for AI. And that's where I said, like, we have to augment machines as a human, and then human augments human later on. Machine augments human later on. So as you feed, right, as you give feedback, so there are features like you have seen everywhere, and this is the example of Grammarly, which is actually rapidly grown in last few years. Grammarly is one of the brand, and this example actually shows that how they are capturing the tone of the conversation. So whether what you are typing, is it formal, is it friendly, or what kind of tone it is, and whether it is intended, is that how you want it. And by clicking on something, one of the option, you are helping machine to train, to understand, okay, this kind of tone is called formal tone, and eventually the model gets stronger. So we are helping machine to get trained, and by giving the feedback, machine is getting stronger and stronger, and it will be more accurate over time. So this is one really good example of how we can augment machine, and then later on machine really gets stronger and get more accurate results to us. The second example is, I think we have seen it every day, which very important feature. And now think about, maybe you have applied for a job somewhere, and say it's been 5 days, you have applied or you have sent email to some recruiter, and you haven't heard back, and maybe your friend knows that you have applied, and then okay, so they are curious, they remind you, okay, have you heard anything from that recruiter? So they nudge you, right? So see how Google has translated some of these human behaviors into digital format. So nudging is something they came up with. Of course, they are capturing all the patterns in terms of when have you sent the email, and since you haven't heard or haven't got any email from that particular email address, I guess you might want to follow up with that person. So see, they are trying to understand the pattern of, or they're trying to understand the behavior, they are anticipating anticipating the behavior of human, how, what you exactly would do now in this situation. So it is about anticipation and providing those actions in a very easy way. So see here, as a user, I don't really think about it. I might even have maybe uh, I might miss actually sending a follow-up email, but since now I see this, I will remember, oh yes, this person haven't really replied to me for last 5 days. Okay, I need to maybe follow up with them. So translating these human behaviors into digital space is something we should always look for. Again, another feature which Google came up with, and there are multiple versions of it actually. One is the canned response. You might have seen this on LinkedIn as well. Like when you message someone, send a message, you also get the canned messages, which are called smart recommendations. So instead of typing something, the full sentence, you just get, based on the context, you get the options which might be appropriate for that situation. And then you respond, you just select one of them and respond to it. And you can also add it. So it is about giving human control. Either you use it as is, or you can add it some additional text, because sometimes saying just let's do it, or especially in the context of LinkedIn, right? That's one feature I always think that maybe they should improve, that you click on the canned reply and it directly goes to the another person, but sometimes it feels very dry, that saying, okay, I'm interested, but no, I want to write something. I may not be interested, but then I would like to know more about it, about that opportunity. So giving that control to human, right? Okay, you can use this canned message, but you can edit it. In this example, you can still add the additional text to it, even if you use the pre-canned examples. So this is the example of Gmail, but there is another version where you can see it on mobile as well. Now the third version, which now we all see recently, is autocomplete, which is something extremely helpful, and it's amazing how it captures the context. So how they process the language, right? And it is about it's very good example of how AI is giving human control. The AI is suggesting you, okay, you can use the sentence what we are recommending you as is, or you can change it the way you want, but they are recommending you. So how it's helping users, especially when you are in a hurry, you really don't have to think about. And I think with Gmail we all trust it so much that many times I personally think that I use it almost 80%, 85% of time, whatever it suggests. So it saves a lot of time. Second is in the situations where maybe language is a barrier, right? But you still need to communicate in English or any other language. So it's a big help for those kind of situation or those kind of users where they really get some help handy without feeling afraid of the language. So it's being kind, is being helping them in the situation where maybe they are not competent enough, but the tool is competent enough. So it is about how can you bring that competency. So you can see here how human control, competency, uh, those values comes in a picture. Uh, it is about again behavior, right? So we have all we get all these, we subscribe lot of things, and usually that goes in spam because you maybe subscribe it for some reason, because you want some particular discount, or many times it happens when you're shopping, right? You just subscribe it or give your email for getting some discount. In some situation you subscribe something but you don't really follow it. So what happens is getting these kind of alerts, right? Understanding the pattern that you subscribe something from this particular email ID, but you haven't even touched that email for say for a last over month. That means you don't really need it. It's not really helpful for you. So in that case, asking you or reminding you that something you haven't used for over a month, do you really need it? So action is something you are as a user supposed to take. AI is not taking action for you, but they are definitely reminding you, do you really need it to keep a control of your subscribed emails, which maybe you're not even using it, which eventually help you keep your space, right? Or quota of your Gmail. It helps you clean up your emails. So these kind of alerts is something very subtle, but it really helps a lot managing your life. Another example which is talking about safety. This is an iPhone example, but I'm sure there are other examples with the different Android and other phones. But when there is an unknown number, something fishy, you get this scam likely number, right? The number which is maybe coming from area which you have nothing to do with, right? So they tag this as a scam likely. So tagging information which is say false or can be a scam and alerting you is one of the very important feature. And something I guess we can do it certainly by asking question, why do you think this can be a scam? Either it is not coming from the call is not coming from your regular contact list, or something maybe you have communicated in recent past. So this is all capturing data from your backend, from your emails, your messages, everywhere. And then basis on that it decides, okay, there is no match to this particular number and location, that means there is something fishy. Or even by government, many times there are certain numbers who are tagged as scam numbers. So all these things, and as I initially talked about collaborating with multiple different organizations. So in such scenarios, organization really need to collaborate with government and lot of these important organizations, and the data gets fed into from all these different areas and providing you the result. So as I said, like collaboration is the critical aspect here, and how you, it's a simple scam likely text, but just imagine how much goes behind this to give you this, gives this result. The second example is, which is more related to the digital, is in banking. Banking is one of the area where we really need risk management or fraud prevention kind of features, right? Where say you get an alert that maybe you have withdrawn something big amount, and which is something based on your patterns, it's not likely that you have done it. So usually if you have enabled this feature with your banks, they'll send you either email or text message, whatever is your preference, and they will confirm with you to approve this transaction. So these are the things which basically we can bring in to save our users, to keep them safe and protecting them from basically from all these frauds. So this is the very good example, and especially safety is extremely critical in the context of financial organizations or those transactions, banking, even social networking in that case, I would say, right? The Facebook, Google, Instagram, all of these things. So users data privacy is extremely critical. So this is one of the good example. Talking about again the historical data when you search, right? So search is another predictive search is another very important feature that we see everywhere. It is the phone example, but you always seen this on Google also, or so many other searches, where it is capturing data basis on your historical data. So many times you get a call from unknown number and it tells you maybe this call is from John. And from where this is capturing this is basically maybe a few months back you exchange some email with John where he has shared his number, or there is some reference, that's the reason it is suggesting you this. But of course there are ways where people can actually make frauds. So there are ways to actually crack this security, but these are the basic logics where it's capturing the historical data patterns and then predicting something basis on that, which helps you, even though the number is unknown, which helps you understand and make decision who might be calling you. This is the good example of predictive search and recommendation. So when you search, right, especially on your phones, when you search for something, basis on what all you search usually every day or you use on your phone every day, you get the snippets of that in the search. So the regularly used apps, the regularly contacted people or recently contacted people, what you look for usually when you search, say, the restaurant or some of these things. If you are using news every day, first thing in the morning, so it will give you the list of all these things. Of course, as human in control principle, lot of these things you can configure also. Like I want to see some of these things when I'm looking for or when I'm searching for. So a lot of these things are based on your usage pattern, but at the same time, many times the control is given to user to configure some of these preferences. This is another example. How can you show the verified data, right? So on Instagram, when there is a verified account, because for particularly for the public figures, there can be a chances where people make some fake accounts, right? And then other people keep following that fake account. So to avoid that, Instagram came up with this verified badge, which is a very tiny feature, but it has a very big impact in terms of trust. So some of the solution can be very tiny. That's the point. Solution can be very small, but it can have a very large impact. Again, talking about the user control and training machine, another example is on Facebook, you have the translation feature, right? So user, and how do you show that out? That is also very important. So when you have maybe post in English and suppose you need to read that in your native language, you click on translate and the second image here, which you see it in your native language, you see the translation just below the English post, right? um, you also have ability as a user to rate it, and rating means your training machine that okay, the translation that you have done, it's 100% correct or it's absolutely not close to how it should be, or there are any other options. So you're helping machine get trained by giving the feedback. So some of these values which we talked about or the guiding principles we talked about, you will see that everywhere in every AI feature, in every application or product every day you're using. So now whenever you see that, be aware of these values. The another one is on Instagram when there are some posts. Now this is about do not harm, right? Do not harm user or help them be good. So if someone is trying to post something abusive, the comments are not good and can hurt someone, it asks you, are you sure you want to post this? Because it's a social networking platform, obviously they can't stop you by posting it. There are other levels of checks where they can remove the comments or all of that, but they are not stopping you to post it, but they are informing you that whatever you are doing is not correct. Are you sure you want to do this? Because it can harm your brand also, or the way people look at you, it can harm that perception also. So it is alerting you. So doing good, AI is used for good cause and in a good way. So it's about how can we help or use AI for digital well-being. Now I'll talk about some of the enterprise application example, and this is something is the product which we have designed uh, recently. This is the cloud service product. It has actually lot of features which are machine learning features. So to start with, just to give you background about what it is, it's basically service for cloud, and the primary audience for this, the users for this, is the service agents. The service agents who basically, when you reach out for any customer service assistance, right, you have some issues, you reach out to say your maybe refrigerator is not working, you reach out to the customer service, and then these are the people who you talk to, and they either try to help you by providing some self-help to you, by providing some article which will help you fix the problem by yourself, or they will create a ticket for you to solve that issue. So the challenge for the older version what we had is it was too time consuming for self service agent to deal with this earlier version of product for us. For them, they have a SLA, they have to close the ticket in a certain time frame, and their performance is measured based on that. So the challenge was, how can we automate some of the processes for them, and basically providing them the single place where they can deal with multiple functionalities without leaving the context. So now, as you see on the top, there are few machine learning features that we have added here. The recommendations that you see, those tiny colorful banners on the top, those are the actions, those are the recommendations based on that particular customer, and it is capturing all the data based on what all has happened in context of that customer. Whether the customer has already created the ticket or they have purchased some product, everything. And based on the conversation with the customer that you see in the right panel, extreme right panel, there is a transcript. So it is basically the text which is as the service agent is talking to customer, it is capturing that conversation live, and while they are talking to each other, it is also highlighting some of the keywords, and those keywords are recommending the actions to the service agent. So as you see in the bottom, as you see here in the bottom, there are these two actions that uh, recommended based on the communication or the conversation the customer and service agent is having. So it is about detecting the actions from the live transcript. So that's one of the ML feature. Second is I talked about the recommendations, which basically triggers the workflow. So process automation. Yeah, so some of these things, there are few more which we have added, but it's of course it's not in this particular example. But yes, it is also about showing the priority, right? Like giving a tag in terms of what is high priority, what is low priority. So all these small things helped users so much in terms of making a decision on things, or taking actions to close the ticket or provide you customer solution, and it greatly actually impacted in a good way by reducing the process time for ticket for service agent. So when you're thinking as a designer, you can bring in all these aspects, think about the need of the user, how they are using this space, what would be convenient for them, what kind of features are required. We have to think about, bring all those human values as a reference, use them, and then try to build something in that context. So you will see a lot of these features are actually based on those values. And again, to talk about everywhere human in control here, everywhere a service agent takes either accepts or dismiss those actions. It's not, nowhere it is forcing user to maybe use some of those recommendations. Now talking about chatbots, if you have used Google or Alexa or some other chatbots, it is about personification, like whether to use woman voice, male voice, or some other accent, all of these things, right? What kind of persona that assistance has. So this is the example of SAP Copilot, which is a chatbot. I'll just quickly play these two examples. Just listen to it carefully, both the conversation. I'll first play the before version of it, and then I'll play the after version of it. And you will, there is a slight difference, but it's a big difference. You will see how the voice UX is done for personifying this chatbot.
Can you give me a status update on the phone I ordered?
I need the purchase requisition.
I don't know it.
Apologies, unfortunately, that is not a valid purchase requisition item. Can you try again? What should the purchase requisition item be?
Okay, I want to order a new phone. Show me phones in the catalog.
Here's what I found for catalog item with material group name, phone.
Show me phones less than $200.
Here's what I found for catalog item with material group name, phone, price less than 200, and item currency USD.
Order this.
Do you want me to create the purchase requisition item, phone 1 purchase requisition cost, 199 purchase requisition currency, USD? Shall I continue?
Yes.
So in this example, the chatbot is not anticipating users' actions or their response, right? Users' response. Multiple times it kept asking for asking questions, which is a good thing, but some of the questions can be approached in a different way, or anticipating what would user need basis on one particular answer. So now look at the after version of it. So this is done by my team at SAP who worked on Copilot development. The work is done by them, and they work on the personification of this chatbot. So now let's look at the better version of it.
Can you give me a status update on the phone I ordered?
I didn't find a request for a new phone. Here are the purchases you have recently made.
Okay, I want to order a new phone. Show me phones in the catalog.
Okay, here are the phones in the catalog.
Show me phones less than $200.
There's one phone that's $199.
Order this.
I created an order for the iPhone. Do you want to submit it?
Yes.
I have submitted it. It should arrive in 2 weeks.
So did you notice the difference? It's basically the second version already predicted what is okay, this is your response, so what all you would need. And it also in the beginning captured that you have maybe looked for something or you have purchased something in past, and basis on that it already give you the option of, do you want this, do you want to search for this particular phone. And when she say I want to order something, it already created a purchase requisition before even she asked for it. So even if it's already created the purchase requisition, it still asks, okay, do you want to use this? So it already reduced few steps during this conversation in the beta version. So it's about like how do you predict based on particular data, maybe historical data. How can you automate this process more efficiently? So we have to focus on that. Now this is another version where it's basically the recommending user the actions basis on the data is provided. Again, this data is provided based on the historical data, the past purchases, and basis on that the action is provided. Now again talking about competence here. as you see that okay, AI is giving you the options which are correct, which you like, because they are accurate, uh, user likely to start trusting the machine, right? They will start trusting the recommendation given by AI, and that's how slowly a machine will build that trust factor. So it is about the competence, about feeling confident about the data, right, and the recommendations that machine is doing, and that's the reason model and data needs to be really strong. Now talking about the explainable AI, so explaining why is extremely important, because unless I know why you are recommending me this, I'm not going to take action on it, right? Unless I'm convinced that okay, this is the right decision or right product for me. So there are levels of explanation. Ranking is something which is heavily used in AI or machine learning. Again, it is kind of confidence, right? Giving user that out of these 5 products, the first one has a top ranking because, or top scoring because out of 100, almost 100 people used it. Compared to that, others may be just used by 20 people. So that means the product used by 100 people has better value. It is liked by more people, right? So there are some reasons why the scoring is high, and it kind of mentally gives that user confidence that okay, I should go with the one which has a higher ranking. So how that ranking is calculated is something, especially in the scenario where it is designed for sales or any financial organization, or in the situation where it is actually service, right, where you want to purchase something for your customer. So ranking explanation is important because it should let user know on what basis the ranking is given to you, right? So here it is basically about the comparison. User want to order something, and the first product has given better ranking compared to say other two. So why other two are not good? It is basically explained here, because this product uh, will be arrived soon, though it might have a little higher price, but it has a better quality and many people have used it compared to other two products. So this kind of explanation is good for me as a human because it gives me some comparison. It gives me those attributes. So explainability is something extremely critical, and we should always look for areas how can we explain that. And as a UI designer, I would say when it comes to designing in or embedding these features into UI, something we should be very creative because we don't want to always bombard with a lot of users with a lot of information which can be maybe one fold away. This is something like explaining something should be handy to user if they want to see it. It should be available upfront, but not necessarily you always have to show everything upfront. Yeah, so this is another example of how can you help explain ranking, right? Like on a popover, it's explaining why supplier B is better than supplier C. Again, another example of chatbot and providing an example solution basis on the historical data. Here it's basically triggering basis on the, here it is basically talking about the example where the machine predicts that there is going to be a product shortage. And again, it's capturing the databases on the historical pattern of product buying pattern, which is maybe observed for that particular user. and it is giving you the explanation that in similar cases we have seen this pattern. Maybe this is the season that people like to purchase this kind of products more or something like that. There are some triggers, and that's why I as a user maybe feel confident. Yes, I think you're right, I am going to order this product, I want to purchase it, and then I trigger the workflow, I trigger the purchase requisition. So giving the access to user immediately recommending that action. This is another example of providing the 360-degree view and insights upfront. This is the SL's example, how these insights can be provided. So you can see that this particular tile, which is basically an account, provides information about the opportunity score, whether it's likely to close or not, what are the key factors for this score, how your activity as a sales agent looks like. This month is it's hot, you have been active on the field, you got more leads compared to say last month. It gives you all the details in terms of how your account looks like and how you as a sales agent is doing, and where this information also gives you idea where you really need to put more efforts and be more active. Also anticipate some of the maybe threats. For example, 3 times deal slipped, showing with the red color and showing that information upfront tells me, okay, I think I'll have to dig deep into this, why that has happened, what's the reason for that. Activity. So these are basically the different examples of how you can recommend and predict some of the actions. So activity engagement score is 29 because you had sent 20 emails, you had 19 calls, you had 6 meetings, you have 5 follow-ups to achieve. So there is a baseline for all these activities which is set by us in the backend. If you go beyond that, it is something shows you in green. That means you are doing fine, you are doing well. But if it is not met, that baseline, and it's below certain baseline, it's showing you orange or red, that means you have to be more active or take certain actions, be a little more quick on taking those actions. So these kind of predictions really help user decide on their strategy, taking certain actions, and basically solve some of the issues which otherwise they won't have visibility to unless they really dig deep into all these different data sets. Similarly for recommended influence, so basis on who all you interacted with, it's with whom it's really important for you to connect to get this deal. So system recommends you all those people, those influencers. Again, recommending tasks. So these are all things which basically you can do as a human, but you will need more time to analyze, list down all these things, because you have to go through a lot of different data sets. But machine is actually aggregating this for you and showing it upfront, so that you really don't have to think about it a lot and spend a lot of time looking for it. So it's about how can you help user by providing this prediction, recommendation, save time and be successful in their job. So I would say these are the things, I guess, these are the values that is part of ethical AI. And when we are designing for people, users, we should always keep in mind and keep it as a primary goal for us. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Ria. We should really, we have to thank you for joining us early morning at 7:30 your time. Thank you from all of us. Great takeaways from your speech tonight, from whatever we design, whether it's AI or not. For us as designers, it's all about people. And you mentioned collaboration is the key, and then designing for AI may not be too different from how we design in general. That's another key point that us in the design field have to take away from you. And all the examples that you gave, how you are so naturally used to products that are built on the principles of AI, and some keywords that you gave, where we had the day-to-day aspects and the principles of AI. That comparison was really very visual and very effective, I guess. Like how trust is there among humans, and like with empathy and reliability, kindness, and how we can help users trust AI now by building similar principles, being unbiased and privacy and everything that is explainable and data reliability and things like that. Good examples again, about the Diwali ad. I am sure all of us can relate to it, and we kind of, all of us, when we see it the first time, we are like, hats off to the visionary who came up with that idea. It really resonates with us, and how AI and technology has been, intertwined into that. The Grammarly example again. In the beginning, how humans augment machine, and then later machine, it gets stronger and more accurate, and it augments us as humans. So wonderful takeaways. Basically, more about the explainability for users, and how being useful to the users by predictability, and eventually everything comes together, where AI being ethical. Thank you so much. And I'm sure all the attendees had a great time listening to you, and we'll open up some time for questions for Ria.
Yeah, this is Shweta.
Yeah, Shweta. Hi.
Yeah, I don't have question, but I like the way you explained the each and everything, and I could also relate with my product so many things, and literally it helped me a lot. Like I was not clear earlier, but I can say now that I'm 90% clear now that what approach I needs to take.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you so much.
clear. I think one thing I would say, Shweta, because I have been through that process when I started 4 years back, because machine learning, AI, these are very, very technical areas, right? And being a designer, we need to know how we can contribute to that process, right? And it is not about
Yes.
being technical, but it is about how can we bring the human side of it in that process. And I think that's what only we should focus on, and that's where I started focusing more on these human values. And now, since we at SAP, we are so much tuned to that process, it gets very naturally, it comes very naturally when we collaborate with all these different teams, um, and making sure that it is driven by all these human values, not just, of course, because the good part is your engineering team knows how to provide a solution in terms of development. Your business team or product management team knows that, okay, what are the demands, or what are the customer requests, or the features that needs to come. So it's a good part that we can collaborate with them on these aspects, but then human is going to use whatever you're going to design, right? So how can we make that more natural? So just focus on that, don't think about the technical aspect of it. I guess the engineering team can figure that out. They are much capable of exploring
Yeah,
those things.
yeah. I agree. Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you virtually.
Same here. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ria.